Greetings and konnichiwa, and welcome to the Onyx Tavern. This is your host, the BARKEEP, bringing you podcast 64 here at the Tavern, presented by Hirotaku.com. Well, longtime listeners of the Onyx Tavern will realize that several months ago, I did a video about the potential of the Dairanger suits being used in Super Megaforce. This, of course, was at a time in which this was all speculation, and the only information we had to go off was the Green Ranger key that appeared at a toy show, and a video preview of Super Megaforce, which happened to show the Dairangers in it. In that video, I talked about the speculation of what it meant to have the Dairangers appear in Super Megaforce. Now, today, what I'm going to go ahead and talk about is, since at least 4 of those Dairangers have actually appeared in Super Megaforce, I want to talk about potentially why that was done, what that means for the rest of Super Megaforce, and just the Power Rangers franchise in general. Now, the video that I originally talked about with the speculation is unfortunately suspended at the moment due to the issues with my account, which I previously explained. So I didn't have a chance to review that audio as far as what I had talked about. So for any of you who clearly remember what I said, I do apologize if I repeat myself in some areas from that previous video. Unfortunately, I just have to go off memory at the moment. But the difference between this video and that video is this video is specifically going to be about their actual appearance and what that means, not speculation of whether or not they would actually appear into the series. So just want to kind of get that out of the way for you guys and move on from that point. So, as everybody knows, the episode Earth Fights Back, 4 of the Super Megaforce Rangers transform into 4 of the Dairangers: pink, green, blue, and yellow. Now, the way it was portrayed in this episode is Gosei specifically said that they had access to powers that have never before been used or existed on Earth. And as fans of Sentai and longtime Power Ranger fans, you know, we got this treat of seeing the Dairanger suits used all for about maybe a minute and a half, basically, and then we move on. That's pretty much the extent of the footage. It was so brief that they weren't even getting a name. I mean, Ranger Wiki lists unnamed new Ranger keys. They just referred to them as the new powers in the episode. And there's a great video that, if you guys have a chance to look up, that's talking about Power Rangers new powers, which is what the Dairangers would be, basically. And for simplicity, I'm just going to call them the Dairangers and the Dairanger keys so that nobody really gets mixed up, least of all me here. So it's curious as to their inclusion into Super Megaforce and into the Power Rangers canon in general. Now, the history of Dairangers is kind of interesting in the way Power Rangers is portrayed. You know, we all know that the Zords were used for the Thunder Zords in Season 2, and for whatever reasons, whether it be marketability, budget, whatever, they never used the Dairanger costumes for the Rangers in Season 2, with the exception of the White Ranger for Tommy, and that's simply because we wanted to use his footage, and of course the Green Zoo Ranger using the White Tiger Zord would just not make any sense. But then again, the Black Ranger using a Green Lion, well, that makes perfect sense. But I digress. In any case, they were never utilized within the series and essentially became Sentai exclusive Rangers. For whatever reason, they broke out the footage of the Dairangers from Gokaiger into Super Megaforce. And I'm very curious as to why they did that. Now, what is the overall impact of the Dairanger suits and costumes within Super Megaforce as just a television series? There really isn't any that I can go ahead and think of. Now, there is a Dairanger tribute episode that will happen, or that did happen in Gokaiger, with the Silver Ranger. And that's where he met the Dairangers Red Ranger, and they did all this stuff, and you know how the tribute episodes go. And ultimately, they turned into all 6 Dairanger, and they went ahead and fought the enemy and learned the key powers and all that kind of stuff. If Power Rangers is planning on doing something similar with Orion in Super Megaforce, then I can see them introducing the suits this early, so people know that those powers are around, that they are accessible. But that doesn't give an explanation as to why they're doing this. Are they introducing the suits to sell toys? I don't think so. There is the possibility that a Dairanger key set could be made, with the evidence that we did see a Dairanger key in the Toy Expo at one point, but that's hardly sufficient evidence. Gokaiger doesn't have toys to go ahead and make exactly. I mean, they didn't have any type of Zord that would connect with the Gokaio. They didn't release anything as far as armor or weapons or anything like that. They didn't even do any re-releases of any Dairanger products. The closest we got is the SH figure arts of the Red Ranger and the White Ranger. And of course, the White Ranger is being sold in the United States as the White Ranger from Season 2. And of course, you really can't, buy the Red Ranger without going to Japan. If this is a ploy to release the SH figure arts here in America, that seems a very flimsy excuse, and I don't see Bandai of America coming up with any type of Dairanger products at the moment. And again, the keys are still up in the air as to whether they're actually going to do that or not. But Raptor makes a good point. They actually made a mold of the Green Ranger and put it on display, indicating that it was made, so they would most likely want to go ahead and release it. But since I don't know much about what Bandai of America's practices are, since they don't make any sense, I don't know what that essentially means at the moment. So why are we including the Dairangers in the Power Rangers? The only reasonable explanation I can think of is that they had the footage and they decided to use it. Because goodness forbid that they actually shoot new footage, that they don't have in the budget to bring out 4 actual costumes. Or heck, if they didn't want to do that, why didn't they use footage from another episode in which the 4 Rangers without the Red Ranger were together, which I believe there were some out there. It doesn't make any sense that they would go ahead and do this except for a budgetary reason. And because of that, it opens this can of worms for Power Rangers. Now, in Alliance, what I was really worried about is that once the Gao line of the Lion Wild Zord knocks the Rangers and the X-Borg off the Animarium, in the Gokaiger footage, they transformed into Jetman and flew down. I was really dreading the fact that they might do that. As much as I like Jetman, as much as I like Sentai, the fact that they would do that was really worrying me, and I was kind of like on pins and needles waiting to see Alliance and see what would happen with that. Now, thank goodness they did not do that and omitted the Jetman footage, and really the Rangers just plummeted 10,000 feet. So there was the improvement, I guess. They didn't change into a flying Sentai, they just fell. Okay, whatever. That's fine. So Saban introduces the Dairangers into the series and the concept that we are now using Sentai footage regardless if it was in Power Rangers to begin with. Are they going to do this again? In the 4 episodes that we've had, this is the only Ranger team to do that. We didn't get anything else thus far at this point. But what's to stop Saban from doing that in the future? I really think that somewhere down the line, they're going to go ahead and have more Dairanger footage or 5-man, Mask Man, Bioman, any of these show up later down the series without an explanation. That they're just going to say, you can use these powers, they've never been used on Earth, go. Use it for a minute, then disappear. Without understanding the consequences. And that's ultimately what I'm trying to get at here. I know I've kind of meandered a little bit in this conversation, but here's the ultimate point. Now that you have introduced the Dairangers in the Super Megaforce, it's not 1 episode, it's not 1 minute that you introduce these into. You've introduced them into the 20-plus year canon of the Power Rangers series. You have now made it that those 4 Rangers have existed somewhere else on Earth, and that the Power Rangers existed on another planet, and somehow, in some way, Gosei has gotten a hold of those powers to utilize for these Rangers. You are effectively not so much retconning, but you're adding another element to this already rich mythos and rich universe of characters and story. And they're not going to do anything with it. That's what ultimately is bugging me here. It's not the fact that they use the footage because they're cheap. It's not the fact that they're not going to release toys about it. And it's not the fact that this could open a precedent of other Sentai footage being used later for, again, the aforementioned laziness of the production staff. It's the fact that you've introduced these characters and created this problem which you have no intention of exploring further or discussing. Now, there are 2 main theories that have cropped up regarding where these Rangers are coming from. And those theories are, one, that they are the original owners of the Thunderzords, which you gotta kind of debate that because the Thunderzords were upgrades of the Dinozords, and you know, maybe they did exist, maybe they didn't, and there is some sort of connection. And the second is these are the, quote, ancient Rangers that were to be used in Lost Galaxy. Because for those of you who don't know, the ancient Rangers were originally going to be the subplot instead of like Psycho Rangers and Corone, but for various reasons, which include, I believe, budget and Valerie Vernon's leukemia, they kind of dropped that plot altogether and went the way of what they did with Corone. And those are fine theories. There's nothing wrong with it. But it's the fact that the writers and the producers and everybody involved do not care. They saw that they were adapting an episode, which, by the way, was an SPD tribute episode, and say, hey, they're in this episode, they change into these Rangers. Let's use the footage instead of doing something else. But nobody barked up to say, can we at least give them a name? Can we give them a reason for existing, for being here in the first place? And that never happened. Because when Super Megaforce is said and done, and we go into Dino Charge, this is going to be forgotten. When this could be a subplot within the series, this could have a significant meaning somewhere else. You could have another series based off these guys. I mean, I really want to know. They've never been used on Earth. So why are they on Earth at the moment? How did Gosei get a hold of them? What planet are they from? Or are they from another dimension? This goes back into my whole thing about the Mega War, because we're talking about accessing powers that you should not reasonably or logically have access to. And like I've stated before, SPD, RPM, and Time Force are examples. Dairangers are another example. And while we're on the subject of Mega War, let's talk about, are they going to be used in the Mega War? Because, as I've stated, the way they obtain powers has not been fully explained. All we know is that they have access to them, and then by the end of the series, we'll have the Mega War, the Legendary War, and that all the Rangers from the past will come together and will fight. And again, I've gone into issues of how I find that to be bothersome, but if we have the power of the Dairanger here, and they can be utilized and accessed, then does that mean that the Dairangers are going to fight in the Mega War? Because we've certainly seen footage of it. We saw in Troy's Dream that the Red Ranger was seen fighting in that battle. Although we also saw 5 Pink fight in that battle. So, are they actually going to go ahead and show up? Is this actually beyond laziness? You know, did they actually realize, oh, we made a mistake, so we're going to correct it by actually putting them in the series and then put them into the Mega War? I don't know, but that's a very interesting question to ask. And again, if they do show in the Mega War, why would they be there? And that's the ultimate question I'm asking, is why? Why is this happening? What does this mean exactly? Who are these Rangers? What do they mean to Gosei? And again, okay, here would be my question. If I went to Super Megaforce and I said, Noah, can I borrow your magic future-telling iPad? And I looked up the Dairangers or the new Rangers in there, what would it tell me? What information would I be given? Who are they? I mean, they got to have a story behind them. And that's something that's kind of bothersome about Super Megaforce at the moment with the other Ranger teams. They use the powers without rhyme or reason or essentially understanding anything about them. See, that was the thing about Gokaigers, that you would access the powers and you would gain the greater power by understanding whatever moral lesson it was that the Rangers trying to teach you about SPD, about Geki Ranger, about Dairanger, and so forth. Of course, that's not happening at Super Megaforce. We're just learning trite lessons that have been repeated over and over and over again, as opposed to whatever the message of that series was supposed to be. So, of course, they're using the Dairanger powers. What's the point? And I know I'm talking circles and all that, and it's just really hard to come down with a concrete answer for any of this. And, you know, Raptor tells me all the time, never put more thought into it than the producers or the writers put into it. But isn't that the problem? That they put no thought into it, and they're causing this problem amongst the fandom? Because I've talked to many fans, and they are really curious as to why the Dairangers were included and what this overall means, again, for the series, and what this means for the continuity, and what this means for Super Megaforce in the end. Now, I would love to be able to see if Orion gets his episode where he meets the Star Force Red Ranger that we got from the asides in the script, and they can go in to explain that, then, you know, I'll be a happy camper. As long as they can do some sort of explanation like they were the Ancient Rangers, or they were once warriors of Zordon that perished in battle and stuff. If we can get, you know, stuff like that, you know, I would be okay with that if we can get an actual story. But my fear is that they're not going to go ahead and do that. They're not going to give us what we expect and what we deserve, which is an explanation for why they are in here. And then, of course, the question is, why the Dairanger? Why not the other Sentai? Why not Jetman or anything? The problem with Super Megaforce right now, and Dairangers as a symptom, is I really don't think they know what they are doing. And I'm going to eventually do a podcast about this new Saban era and my issues with what's going on here. But they just don't really seem to care. All they want to do is put some cool footage on the screen, some witty banter, and not really do anything special with it. Because in 4 episodes right now, I haven't seen anything special other than the fact that, wow, they're using Dairanger footage for no reason. That's been the most special thing that I have seen in this series thus far. So, again, it's really confusing to me. It doesn't make any sense. And I really wish it did, because I love the Dairanger costumes, and my hope over the summer is to watch all of Dairanger, and I've been able to download the episodes. But I really want to see where they're going to go from here. What are they going to do with this? Is this just going to be a minute-long cameo, or is this going to mean something more down the line? Whether it be in Super Megaforce or Dino Charge or something different altogether, because I would love to see the adventures of the new Rangers and their new powers. So, heck, I'd like to see them reuse them again in American footage. Now, wouldn't that be interesting? But again, there's got to be a rhyme or reason. There has to be substance and significance to what they are doing, and again, why they are doing it. So I think I've talked long enough. I hope I've been able to go ahead and make a point out of all this, but we're just going to have to see what happens. But I want to know what you guys think. Was using the Dairanger costumes a good idea? Was it a bad idea? Or are you guys like the producers and don't care? That's what I would like to go ahead and know. So definitely go ahead and leave your comments and thoughts below right here. I'd love to hear from you on that. But I think I've said my piece for today. So thank you guys for listening. And the tavern is now closed.